Today we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating feeling. It's one that some of the world's greatest storytellers and even ancient spiritual traditions seem to share. It's this sense that you're not really inventing something new, but that you're just recording what was already there. So, let me ask you this. Have you ever been working on something, maybe writing or playing music or even just figuring something out in your daily life, and it feels like the idea isn't coming from you, but through you, almost like you're taking dictation for something that already exists somewhere? Yeah, in those moments, you feel less like an engineer who's, carefully building a machine from a set of blueprints, and you feel way more like a scribe, just carefully writing down a story that's already been written. It's a kind of mysterious experience, but it's super common for creative people. And as it turns out, some of the most famous creators in the world felt this exact same way. Which, of course, brings us to our first key witnesses. We're talking about two absolute literary giants, J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. These guys shaped the imagination of millions. And for them, this wasn't just some fleeting, artsy sensation. No, this was absolutely central to how they saw their life's work.
Tolkien was really, really clear about this. He basically insisted that the massive, detailed world of Middle-earth wasn't something he just made up. He saw himself more like an archaeologist or maybe a historian, uncovering and just recording a history that felt on some deep level already real.
And get this, here's a perfect example of that. He said the character, Faramir, just appeared. Uninvited. He wasn't in the outline, he wasn't planned, he just walked into the story as if he had his own agenda. It was like the story itself demanded he be there, and Tolkien, being the scribe, just wrote him down. Now, it wasn't just him. His close friend C.S. Lewis talked about a very similar process for creating Narnia. He said he didn't start with a plot or some grand theme. For him, it all started with these really powerful, random images that just popped into his head. He even called his process a kind of bird watching, just waiting patiently for these ideas to show up. Okay, so here's what's so interesting. For these two, this wasn't just them being poetic, it was a core part of their belief system. Tolkien actually came up with a term for it, subcreation. The whole idea is that because humans are made in the image of a creator, our own acts of creation are really just us taking part in that original divine creation. So we're not making brand new things, we're rediscovering pieces of a truth that's already woven into the fabric of everything. Lewis, on the other hand, called this true myth. He believed that good stories, especially fantasy stories, are not an escape from reality. Not at all. In fact, it's the opposite. By putting normal, everyday things into a mythological setting, we actually see them more clearly. We rediscover the wonder of the real world. All right. So we've got this really powerful idea of creativity as discovery, coming from a Christian worldview. But here's where things get really wild. If we jump over to the other side of the planet, we find a strikingly similar concept in Mahayana Buddhism. The key idea here is called the Dharmakaya. Now, in simple terms, you can think of this as the truth body of reality. But it's not some hidden thing behind the curtain. It's the constant, active self-expression of truth and awakening that's happening through everything, all the time, right now. So in this view, awakening isn't something that just happened to one guy 2,500 years ago and that's it. No, it's an ongoing activity. And this quote from the teacher Nichiren is so key. The voice carries out the Buddha's work. That means expression, sound, our voice, our creativity. It isn't separate from the truth, it's the vehicle for it. Think about it like this. When someone chants a mantra, they're not calling out to some distant power for help. It's more like the act of chanting allows the Dharmakaya, that truth that's already everywhere, to find a voice, to sound out through the instrument of your own body and your own breath. The Dharma literally does itself through you. So you see the connection, right? Tolkien feels like he's recording what's already there. A Buddhist chanter is giving voice to what's always present. The feeling is incredibly similar, but, and this is a really important but, the why behind that feeling, the deep down explanation is pretty different. Let's break that down. For Tolkien and Lewis, the already there comes from a personal creator God. God made reality, and humans, because we're reflections of that source, can kind of tap into it. Now, for Buddhism, there's no original separate creator. Reality is the process. Here's a great analogy. You're not a reflection of the ocean, you are a wave in the ocean. There's no gap, no separation. And yet, despite those really big differences, both paths bring you to this same incredible, liberating idea.
They both tell us that we're not these isolated little egos that have to make up all of our own meaning from scratch in some empty void. We are participating in something so much larger than just ourselves.
And listen, this isn't just some weird idea shared by a couple of British fantasy writers and some Japanese Buddhists. This idea, this recognition that reality expresses itself through us, it's a universal human insight. You can find it in contemplative traditions all over the world. We see these echoes everywhere. It's in the Aboriginal songlines that literally sing the landscape into existence. It's in Sufi chants, where the whole point is to dissolve the boundary between yourself and the divine. You got it in the mystical Jewish idea that sacred letters are the actual building blocks of the universe. And it's right there in the Christian concept of the Logos, the divine word through which all things were made.
You see the thread, right? All of these traditions are pointing to the same profound shift in how we see ourselves. That maybe our purpose, our task, isn't to struggle and strain and try to invent meaning out of nothing.
But to get quiet, to listen, to get out of our own way and become clear enough, open enough, to allow the meaning that's already woven into the universe to just flow through us, through our work, our words, and our lives.
So, whether you call it what Tolkien Nig,
Or how Lewis framed it. Or you use the language from the East, the core insight is exactly the same.
And that leaves us with one final, powerful question. If we stop trying so hard to invent and start learning how to listen, what truth is waiting to find its voice through you?